The Great Plains and southern states were struck by a severe drought in 1930. Everyone was suffering from the drought, including animals and crops. Most thought it couldn't get any worse, and then things took a dramatic turn. The first dust storms hit in 1934. Black blizzards covered the sky and no one knew what to do. As they rushed home, some found broken windows and houses full of dust. As the storms continued, people attempted to adapt. The women attached wet sheets and cloths in front of doors and windows as a makeshift filter. They stuffed any exposed areas with gum tape and rags. Although they tried, the dust was impossible to keep out. It got to the food, inside water, and in everyone's lungs. Dust pneumonia was a disease caused by all the dust backed up in everyone's lungs. It killed children, adults, and the elderly. To try to eliminate the dust going inside their lungs, they wore masks, goggles, and put Vaseline in their noses. Animals soon began to die, one by one. Birds tried to escape unsuccessfully. Sheep choked to death. Horses' gums became raw. Another food source was eliminated. Farmland was completely destroyed and a bunch of topsoil was blown away. Crop production stopped and many were hungry. Not only were the dust storms destroying crops, but grasshoppers and crickets were eating away at them as well. Swarms of grasshoppers attacked time after time, eating anything and everything. They chewed away at crops, shirts, and any household items. Elroy Hoffman, who survived the storms, quotes, "And on a tractor, it would just be like a cloud, and once in a while they would hit you in the face and drive you cuckoo." Farmers would sweat as they worked in the fields, and grasshoppers are naturally attracted to sweat. They would literally land on the farmers' backs and eat the sweaty shirt off of them. Not only were there grasshoppers that overpopulated the area, but jackrabbits did as well. If the grasshoppers missed anything in the fields, the jackrabbits would surely take care of it. Since the crops were gone, there was nothing to eat. Tumbleweed was the only thing that would grow. People soon discovered that tumbleweed is actually edible and high in iron.
A city in Oklahoma actually encouraged farmers to harvest weeds. Weeds are grown with very little necessities and can survive the harsh storms. Oklahoma was one of the driest states during the Dust Bowl, and many dust storms started there. Other states, southeast Colorado, southwest Kansas, and Texas, were also the start of many storms that turned into terrible tragedies.
One of the worst days during the Dust Bowl was Black Sunday. Black Sunday had the largest and the longest-lasting dust storm ever recorded. April 14th, 1935. It was finally sunny. People were enjoying the day, going to church, having picnics, playing outside. At noon, people had thought it was a miracle. No storms had hit. Well, things changed from there. Happiness. It was everywhere. But people looked up and saw the biggest cloud of dust ever.
The storm approached at an amazing speed, faster than any other. Some took shelter in nearby structures, and others tried to escape, unsuccessful. Everyone was frantic and very scared. This storm was the last major storm of the year, and it hit hard. Avis D. Carlson wrote in a New Republic article, "The impact is like a shovelful of fine sand flung against the face. People caught in their own yards grope for the doorstep. Cars come to a standstill, for no light in the world can penetrate that swirling murk. The nightmare is deepest during the storms, but the occasional bright day and the usual gray day we cannot shake from it. We live with the dust, eat, sleep with it, watch it strip us of possessions and the hope of possessions. It is becoming real. The nightmare is becoming life." The storm was very severe because of the high winds that hit on Black Sunday. With the drought, erosion, and loose soil, the wind caused the dust and dirt to fly freely and at speed. There was no safe place. Even homes were attacked. Citizens nearly got buried alive. The dust came through doors and windows, and there was no way to get it out during the storm. With all the dust flying around, bumping into each other, it created lots of static electricity. When shaking someone's hand, you would get knocked over. People avoided shaking hands, afraid they would get blown away. These huge dust clouds were pitch black and even produced their own lightning and thunder. The storm rose to 8,000 feet and people were completely horrified. Many thought it was the end of the world. Barbara A. Unruh from Perryton, Texas quotes, "On April 14th, 1935, around 4 or 5 in the evening, a real bad dust storm approached the area. Dave was on his way home from the neighbors. It became pitch black, so dark you couldn't see your own hand in front of your eyes. Dave had to crawl home a half-mile in the bar ditch and got dust pneumonia afterwards."
Farmers may have gotten discouraged, but many didn't show it. They were persistent and almost thoughtless, not strategizing ways to improve their techniques. Poor farming techniques were unproductive and contributed negatively to the Dust Bowl. They were overplanting and overgrazing crops, as well as doing very large plowing under natural grasses and replacing them with non-drought resistant crops. With crops failing, many farmers and their families became what most people consider hobos. 2 million people were homeless.
Hobos illegally hopped onto trains when they heard of job opportunities. The positions were thousands of miles away, so train was necessary.
1/4 of the population in the Great Plains states left and went to California. In Oklahoma, 40% of the population migrated west. By 1940, 2.5 million people had left the prairie states. 200,000 went to California, and when they arrived, they were shocked to see all the farms were corporate-owned.
Kansas preacher comments, "The land just blew away. We had to go somewhere." More would have stayed, but they were forced to leave when they lost their land in bank foreclosures. Farmers left, they packed everything up and just drove away.
Since there was big brand name farms, the techniques used were way different. The migrators were confused by the large use of chemicals and machines. The crops being grown in California were way different than the ones the migrators were used to. With different crops, there were different necessities. In California, farming was strict. Farmers were very unfamiliar and struggled to farm. Many farmers simply gave up. Getting into California, migrants had a hard time. The border was very strict on who they let in. Once inside, it wasn't an easy life. Former residents of California often were mad at the migrants for invading.
Groups of visual antis beat up migrants and burned their shacks down.
Migrants had camps of tents that California provided because they didn't have homes. All provided was a tent and a couple of the necessities.
Migrants got paid very little, barely any. Some only 20 cents an hour and had shacks with no floors or plumbing. They had to buy food at local overpriced markets and were scraping past. Most jobs included picking cotton and fruits in the field all day long. Florence Thompson in Okie says, "It was very hard and cheap. We just existed. We survived. Let's put it that way."
Dust Bowl left a huge legacy. Eventually, farmers strategized and the government created an erosion control program. It helped preserve whatever good soil was left, which wasn't much. This group was created June of 1933, and 2 years later, the Soil Erosion Service Agency started a campaign that provided financial incentives for farmers to take the land that is unsuited for agriculture and turn them into forests or pastures. New strategies were encouraged, like drainage, terraces, and also farming methods like contour plowing and crop rotation. Even after the Dust Bowl, with these new techniques, farming was at a high. Dust Bowl also produced the largest migration of all time. Yes, the Dirty 30s were a tragic, horrible time, but some good things evolved.